Okay, you guys ready?
Ready. Welcome. Welcome, everyone. We are just getting settled here and then giving a couple more minutes for people to join, but soon we should be getting started. So we appreciate your patience and thank you for joining us tonight. So we have a poll that we would like for all of you to participate on. So please, if you get the chance before we start, please answer the questions to the poll. There are only 2 of them, and we would love to hear from you. So where you're coming from, and also how much do you know about solar energy? Welcome. So just take some time if you're just joining to answer the poll that we have available. It's a couple of questions.
I can hear you.
Awesome. We should be getting started very soon. Thank you for joining. For all of those who are just joining now, we have a few participants that have answered the poll. We encourage you to do respond so we get a sense of your background, where you're coming from, and how much you know about solar. Also, as we are getting started, we would like to encourage everyone to submit your questions on the chat box. So we will be able to respond to them as we go through the presentation. So if you have any questions about what we will be sharing today, please make sure to add your questions on the chat box, which is right in, if you are using a computer, it's right in the middle of your screen, like underneath. If you're using a phone, it should be on the 3 dots and then where it says more. And if you are dialing in tonight, just press *9 and we will know that you have a question, and that will raise your hand and we will call on you so you can ask your question. So make sure that one, you ask your questions on the chat again, here. And if you have other, if you're using a phone dialing in, press *9 and we will talk to you. So thank you for answering the poll, and we will be getting started in just a minute. So let's just give 1 more minute so we can get started.
I also do want to mention that we have Eliza here that's going to be doing any tech assistance. In the background, her number is in the chat, but if you have any issues, it doesn't look like anybody is in distress technically. But if you have any issues, feel free to call 212-479-3346. Again, that number is 212-479-3346.
All right, I think we should get started. Thank you, everyone, for making it tonight. We will be ending the poll right now, and I hope that you guys can see the results. So as you can see the results, we have, you know, not a fair distribution. Some people from Manhattan, some people from Brooklyn, from the responses 3 and 2. We also have some folks that believe they don't know much about solar. I'm sure they know more than what they think. And then some that know, that consider themselves knowing a little, and others that know the basic, as well as some that know a little bit more. We can also see the type of buildings that you're coming from. So the units, so, you know, buildings that are less than 10 units all the way through 100 to 200 units, which will be very interesting and very important as we unfold with our discussion tonight. So again, thank you so much for being here, and we will start this presentation. So I would like to, is everyone seeing the poll, or the poll is done?
The poll is done.
Okay. For some reason, it's still in my screen.
I think you can close out of it with the X box in the top corner.
Got it. All right, so let's start. So my name is Jose Galvez Contreras. I am a solar researcher and program manager at Solar One, and I am part of the Here Comes Solar program of this nonprofit organization here in New York City. And I will be joined tonight by my colleagues, David and Annika, which I will let them introduce themselves. And David comes from UHEP, so I'll have them take the floor.
Yeah, hi. Hi, everyone. My name is David Avina. I work at UHEB. I work in the Member Services Department, and I'm part of the Co-ops Go Solar team. I do want to do a quick shout out to both Karen Peterson and MTP. They attended our Greening Your HDFC class on Tuesday, and so they're getting extra knowledge today. So thank you to you both, and I encourage everyone else also to go to our other classes to learn more about energy efficiency.
Hi, and my name's Annika Wister-Jones. I'm the Senior Program Manager for Affordable Solar at Solar One, and I'm really looking forward to answering your guys' questions about solar tonight.
Awesome. So we're gonna start, before we start with the presentation, I do wanna give you a small public service announcement regarding people who are in the Con Edison area. So Con Edison will not be shutting off your electricity or gas while we are withstanding the pandemic crisis of COVID-19. So if you have not paid your bill, you should not be worrying about having your electricity or gas be shut off. There are 2 assistance programs available for unexpected costs, and these ones are the public assistance and emergency cash assistance programs. These programs are not applicable while the utility is not being allowed to shut off your services. However, once that we go through COVID and we come back to normal or as close to normal, the programs will be available once again for all New York City residents that need to apply for this program. So that's something that we wanted to share, so you have it and keep it in mind in case of emergency. So look at that, and then we also have different other resources which you can tap into, and I'll let David take it from there.
For sure. We also have, UHAB has a hotline. It's a general resources hotline for supporting any HDFCs going through any sort of crisis or dilemma related to COVID-19. So please, anybody in the HDFC tenants, the board, shareholders, everybody could call that number if they need any issues. Some of the things that we aid with are getting mutual aid to the building, getting groceries delivered, connecting folks to different financial assistance as well. And if you have other maybe more deeper questions, you could also look at our link uhab.coop/coronavirus. We have constantly updating resources from federal, state, city level, from CDC. We have a bunch of information and links there, and it's all relevant to HDFCs. So anything, if you need any help, call the number, or if you want to do your own research and make it specific to HDFCs or co-ops, go to our website, and we have more information there. Also, that information is in the chat as well, just in case you don't have time to write it down or remember it off the top of your head. But also just to introduce myself and UHAB, UHAB supports and affordable cooperatives across the city. We help low-income neighborhoods preserve and sustain affordable housing. I specifically work in the member services department. And as you can see, we have all these different services for HDFC cooperatives. You can see a picture of our latest HDFC member newsletter. This season was the sustainability issue. But we also have our fire and liability insurance program, our You Have Fuel. Those are bulk purchasing programs that use economies of scale to lower the prices of insurance and heating fuel. We also have co-op accounting. This is a bookkeeping service and an online service run by my man Fabio. He, in the member services department, he helps different HDFCs keep their books balanced and helps with some taxes as well. But what we're here to talk about is really our energy programs. Besides our benchmarking and energy advisement, we have this Co-ops Go Solar campaign. So let's just get right to it, solar. Co-ops Go Solar. This is the first solar campaign that focuses exclusively on HDFCs. Our goals are to heighten the awareness of renewable energy in HDFCs and make it accessible, both physically and financially. Our goal is also to increase energy efficiency in HDFCs. It's not just a one-stop project for solar. We also want to do a holistic betterment of a HDFC. And all of this is to sustain affordable HDFCs into the future, make them more resilient and sustainable. And Solar Uptown Now was the first success that we had with solar for HDFCs. This was a collaboration with We Act for Environmental Justice, Solar One's Here Comes Solar, Sustainable CUNY, and UHAB. This neighborhood-based group used bulk purchasing, just like I mentioned with the insurance, but it was localized in Harlem. And so there was about 11 buildings, there were 11 buildings, including 9 HDFCs that ended up with solar on their roofs. And through the bulk purchasing, they were able to lower the price of approximately 30% below average. And one of the better parts that came out of this campaign was a job trainings program, so and a hiring commitment. So this campaign not only localized solar within the Harlem neighborhood, it also hired the technicians and installers from that neighborhood. So it was really kind of that first movement in solar that was reflecting that just transition that we talk about in our other classes. But the main question is, why are we talking about solar? Why does this matter right now? And really, it's about the high energy costs of electricity and the health impacts of climate change. The high energy costs is related to energy burden. So households that spend over 6% of their income on energy costs are considered as energy burden. We know that Black and Latinx households have a higher rates of energy burden nationwide. And as you can see by the image with the Union of Concerned Scientists, energy burden is prevalent across the entire nation. It's not localized to New York City. It's a phenomenon that we see across this nation, and it's really disproportionate for different neighborhoods. There be PLC neighborhoods or low-income neighborhoods. And so the goal is by reducing energy burden, it keeps affordable housing affordable, and that's the key. And second is health impacts. Solar panels can indirectly contribute to better air quality. Solar reduces reliance on peaker plants, like you can see that image there. These peaker plants are the dirtiest polluting power plants in the city, and they turn on during the peak hours. So that's usually when you come home after a long day at work, or especially during the summer times when everybody has their air conditioning on, running 24/7 just to cool your house. The grid needs more power, and so the city turns on these dirty polluting power plants to keep up with demand. So if you have solar panels on your roof, it reduces that demand. It reduces the need to turn on these polluting power plants, and so therefore the air quality around those neighborhoods end up clearer and cleaner. And of course, better air quality reduces respiratory illnesses like asthma. And so this is even more important today. COVID-19 is a respiratory disease, and a Harvard study has concluded that a small increase in long-term exposure to air pollution leads to a large increase in COVID-19 death rate. And as we know, low-income neighborhoods oftentimes have the worst air quality. There's these fence line neighborhoods due to environmental racism. They're localized in different areas where the air is dirtier. And so reducing carbon emissions is standing up for the most vulnerable New Yorkers, including elderly, children, and the immunocompromised. Once again, just mentioning COVID-19, I do want to put that hotline number and our website there. Please check out the website for more resources, but also call the hotline and share the hotline with the HDFC if anybody needs any resources or support. And all that being said, innovation and solar isn't anything new to HDFCs or cooperatives. These photos are from 1977. There's a windmill and solar heating systems for water on the Hartstone HDFC and the Lower East Side, 519 East 11th Street. These folks put their windmill and solar panels on the roof themselves. They heated the hot water and generated some electricity. They did end up having to take them down because I guess the city couldn't figure out what to do with it. And so it wasn't part of the norm, right? But through several cases from this building, it initiated what we now call net metering. And so this innovation really developed innovation within our electrical grid across the city. And now we're starting to see that changing again when more and more buildings are starting to have solar panels. And so now Con Edison has to figure out how to deal with all this energy coming in and out and consolidate the energy in a appropriate manner. So all this came from, the HDFC community, your community. So don't be scared. This isn't anything new. You've all dealt with this before. And so far, our impact has been successful, I would say. We have 28 co-ops signed up, committed to go solar. That's about 970 families benefiting from solar. 11,000 tons of CO2 avoided. So that's that air quality that you're bettering. That 522 kilowatts of power is developed over the lifetime. So that's that reduction in the reliance on the grid. And there's also $5 million in savings over the panel's lifetime. Brass tacks is it saves you money long term. And I'll pass it over to Solar One to go ahead and talk more about what solar is.
Yeah, thank you so much, David. That's a really great introduction and background to why this is so important. I'll give a very brief introduction to Solar One as an organization. We're an environmental education nonprofit in New York City. We've been around since 2004, and we do all sorts of things that help involve New Yorkers in the solutions to the climate crisis and sustainability in general. So we have a workforce training program where we train hard to employ and underemployed people in skills like solar installation, but also carpentry and electrical work in general. We have a clean energy education program for public schools in New York City. We have a park on the East River, which whenever we're allowed to go outside again, you should all visit. It's really beautiful and populated with all native plants. And then we have the Here Comes Solar program, which helps New Yorkers go solar. Just to give a little bit of background on solar around the country and in New York City, worldwide solar costs have declined dramatically in the past 10 or 15 years. And that means that solar has increased in adoption for exponentially. So that means that for a single family home, maybe in the suburbs, it's very easy and very cheap to go solar now, but that's not as true for New Yorkers in multifamily buildings, as you may imagine. So we still have barriers like construction, red tape, just the complexity of working with multifamily buildings and having to deal with many stakeholders. The fact that we're in a dense urban environment with many tall buildings can be difficult to work with. And then of course, in the HDFC community, there's always the additional complexity of regulatory and financial complexity for affordable housing. So we established the Here Comes Solar program to meet those barriers and make it just as easy for multifamily co-op to go solar as it is for a single family house in the suburbs to be able to take this benefit. So what Here Comes Solar provides is basically the same as what we provide through this Co-ops Go Solar campaign. So the purpose of the campaign is to provide these free site assessments to see whether solar is a good fit for a building in the first place. We can do knowledge building, so workshops like this, but also we can do a call or a meeting with the board and explain how solar could work for a building specifically, and also answer any questions that people in the building have. We also do financing, consulting, and incentive consultation. So if you don't have the reserves to install solar now, we have some different options that you can look into. And then if you decide you want to go solar, then we can help you find an installer. As David was talking about, we can create bulk purchasing groups to reduce the price for everyone. And then during installation, we keep tabs on how everything is going and make sure the installer does what they're supposed to do. So a little bit about Solar 101. I noticed that most of you said you knew very little about solar, so we'll start at the very beginning. And as David mentioned, please feel free to chat questions as we go, and we'll answer them at the end of this section. So how solar works. Solar panels take photons from the sun and turn them into electrons that we use for electricity. The electricity goes from the panels on the roof through wires into your electrical room, where there's a box called an inverter, which is an electronic box that will convert it from DC energy, which is how it's produced, to AC energy, which is what we all use in our outlets. Then any energy that you need in the building right then and there is just taken directly by the building. And that reduces what you need to pay Con Edison for your bill, because you're not consuming it from the grid. But often the solar panels will produce more energy than you actually need at that moment. And so any extra energy is sold back out to the grid, and Con Edison credits you with it at a 1-for-1 rate. So that means that maybe during the day, if you're not using that much energy, but the sun is out and the solar panels are producing a ton of electricity, the solar panels will generate a lot of solar credits. You'll sell them to Con Edison, and then at night when you turn on all the lights, you'll use those solar credits to offset your energy usage. So you might produce a lot during the day and then consume a lot at night, but overall it averages out to being offset completely by solar. And that's true for the whole year as well. So if you think about it, we're in the Northern Hemisphere, so the days are much longer in the summertime than they are in the winter. So often people will produce far more electricity than they need in May, June, July, August, and then generate even up to like a negative bill for Con Edison. And then you eat into those credits that you've generated over the summer in November, December, January, February, so that by the time the spring equinox rolls around and you start the year over again, you're back at zero and you start the whole process again. A little bit of logistics about solar panels themselves. Solar panels are incredibly durable and long lasting. So they have a 25-year operating life, which means that all decent solar panels have a warranty of at least 25 years. And the manufacturer is required to replace a panel if it's not producing as much as it's supposed to up to year 25 with a panel that will produce the desired amount. So that's great. It means that it's a very stable system. And one consideration for that is that it means that solar panels are best to put on a relatively new roof. Because if you think about it, you don't really want to put solar panels on a roof and then, a year or two later, have to take them off, replace the roof, and then put them back on again. So one of the things that we can help you do is look at your roof and see whether it's in good condition for solar, or whether you might want to do another roof coating or something similar. As I said, solar panels are very durable, but they're also very low maintenance. So there's basically nothing that you need to do to take care of them. We generally recommend that you look in on them maybe once or twice a year to make sure there's no debris that's blown up onto them, or wires that have gotten dislodged or something like that. But other than that, you shouldn't need to do any kind of ongoing maintenance. They do require direct sunlight, so shading should be avoided. So trees are often cited as shading concerns, but in New York City, it's more often going to be taller buildings. The biggest consideration for that is shading from the south, because we're in the Northern Hemisphere. More often than not, the sun is going to be to the south of us. And so if you're looking at your building and you've got a very tall building just to the south of you, that might be a concern. But if the very tall building is to the north of you, it's not really a big problem. So that's one of the first things that we do to figure out whether solar is a good fit for a building. And then another thing about solar is that the panels are grid connected, which is great. It means that at nighttime, when the sun isn't producing the energy you need, you still have electricity from Con Edison. Solar panels don't affect at all the connectivity of your electricity, but it also means that it doesn't provide power in a blackout. Solar systems have a safety feature that turns off the system if they notice that there's a blackout. And the reason for that is that when there is a blackout, Con Edison will send out line workers to make sure that the work is done and the blackout is fixed. And so if the solar panels are sending electricity to the grid, then you wouldn't want to electrocute the line workers. So that's a safety feature. If you really want it to be provide blackout power, an option is a battery system, but in New York City, that's very expensive and very difficult to permit. So I wouldn't recommend it for most buildings. Jose, would you like to take us away with the types of solar installations?
Sure. So there are three types of solar installations. The first one is the ballasted array type of installation, and that one basically, these are low profile installations. They are just, the panels basically are sitting at a slight angle on the roof of your building, and there is no real penetration going in. They're just held down with cinder blocks that keep them steady. This type of installation is very common in New York City. A lot of buildings have used this type of installation. It tends to be on the lower end of the pricing, so that's why it's a good preference for a lot of buildings. It works best when there are large spaces, large roofs. So that's when it would make much more sense to install this type of system. The second type of solar installation that usually is common here in New York City buildings is the mechanically integrated or planar array. Basically, this one does require some perforation, but it is often used for mid to smaller size buildings that want to maximize the production of the solar panels. Panels tend to be closer to each other, and they are built in at a slight angle that they rise up at an angle, so we can get much more from the energy from the sun. They tend to be in a mid-range in terms of pricing, but also the value of it comes that you get more energy production over the lifespan of the type of installation, this type of installation. The third one is the canopy array. The canopy array basically is similar to a planar array, except that it is raised above at a 9 feet high or more. And this one is very useful if you want to maximize energy efficiency or like maximize the energy production by having more panels and using all of the roof space. And if you want to also use the space underneath the roof, like to use the roof, make sure that the roof is not covered, this type of installation makes sense. Most of the buildings that would go for this installation tend to be on the smaller size type building that want to maximize production. The canopy installation does cost a little bit more because it does require more work and also more structures that go into it. So now we can do like a solar viability quiz, and maybe there will be some polls where we will be sharing, and I want to ask about one of the buildings right now that we will be showing that is going to be circled out. What do you guys think about building A, whether it makes sense to have solar or not? Just to see how we're doing. So please vote on the poll and choose what do you think of building A. Is it a strong candidate for solar, yes or no? Is it not? And then also there will be other buildings that we will be displaying. So please select, what do you think about building A? I guess we're
Can you guys see the poll?
Are you guys able to see the poll?
We can see the poll, but I think we can't submit our question until we go through all of them.
Okay, so we will so there's building B and building, yes, correct. So what do you guys think about building A? Think about building A. We spoke about the different types of options that a solar system, requires. Direct sunlight, requires, exposure, no shading. So building A, what do you guys think about that type of building? And then look at building B. We spoke about different structures and the types of installations that, solar energy, that type of solar energy installations. There is the ballasted large roofs or mechanically integrated or canopy, and where do they fit? So that would be for building B. Building B is just underneath, like if you look down on the screen where you'll have the closer to your chat, you can see the building B. And building C is right there. So what do you guys think about building C? Awesome. Okay, great. Okay, we're getting some responses. Very, very good. Awesome, let's just, okay. So I hope you guys are seeing the results right now. So, so for building, okay. So for building A, right? So it would be a strong candidate if there was no shading from the building just to the side of it. So like if you can see, there's a lot of shading, so that building wouldn't make you wouldn't make it as a strong of a candidate. So building A is not a strong candidate because of shade. But if there was no shade, it could have fit a smaller type of size of system, maybe a little canopy or a mechanically integrated system to get a lot of energy efficiency. Then building B, as you can see, it's underneath. Is that tall building with a lot of structures. It would become a little bit complicated for that building to actually host a solar energy system because of the different structures on it, and it will just not make much more sense to invest energy and money on a solar system for that building. And then the third building, building C, it's excellent for solar. In that one, we can fit a decent sized system that could possibly be generating electricity for the common area of that building or for some of the residents of the building, depending on the size of the building. So it's really cool to see that, solar is possible in the city. We just have to get creative with it. Some buildings may not have the option to get solar, but there are ways in which the benefit of solar still can reach the folks who cannot necessarily have solar on their roof. And we will be chatting more about that as we continue. All right. So I want to share with you, if you can see on the slide, that solar is possible. As I was saying, these little buildings got creative and installed small systems. There are 3 different little systems. They look to be mechanically integrated or planar arrays. And those are the ones that are surrounded with green squares. So it is possible to have solar. So don't get discouraged if you have a small roof, because we are here to help and get you guys started with the process, at least to learn about how much energy you can produce on top of your building. So how does energy distribution work in New York City, especially when we live in constrained spaces? As we know, we tend to put many families in one building who have to share one roof. And because we have to share one roof, putting a solar installation in a New York City building may be a little bit hard to provide electricity for everyone in that building. So how we do it, or how it tends to happen in New York City, is that when you have a solar system on top of a building's roof, the first option is that you will offset the electricity usage of the common area of that building. So that installation that has been installed on top of that roof would be used to offset the energy usage of the common area, which is what everyone uses as a community. It would be the lights, the common area lights, the laundry room, elevator, etc. So anything that has that is a shared electricity usage would be offset by that solar system on top of the roof. However, as we discussed, there is the possibility that some buildings may have large roof spaces and could host larger solar installations. Those buildings that do have large spaces and can host larger solar installations can take advantage of what we know as community shared solar. And basically what happens is that the solar power being produced by that system is split between the residents who live in that building, their electricity by a portion of it. So it tends to be about anywhere 20 to 30% of the individual unit's electricity bill. And if you produce enough electricity, it may be that you can do both, the common area as well as a portion of the individual unit's electricity bill, if you were to do community shared solar, option 2. If you have any questions, please, this is the time to ask, and we would be more than happy to answer them in terms of how solar works, Solar 101, and you know, the types of installations, or how it could be distributed. So that area.
We'll be talking about the financial matters next, so anything about that we can talk about later, but about the logistics, we're all ears. So one thing I wanted to mention about the community shared solar versus solar for the common area is that often for co-ops, the consideration is if you're installing solar for the common area, then you're offsetting the common area's costs, and you're reducing the operating costs for the co-op long term. But if you install solar as community shared solar, then you're really providing a benefit for the shareholders in the building. So, but then that means that you're not reducing the co-op's operating costs as much or at all. So it's really a question of what the priority is for the co-op. If you want to provide a benefit for the people in the co-op, or if you want to make the co-op itself more financially sound, that's a decision that each co-op makes on their own, and you know, different people have different preferences.
Great. It seems we have no questions, so I think we can move along. Awesome. Okay, saving money with solar. So there are two ways to save money with solar energy. One is through utility bill savings, as Annika was just saying or sharing, you know, by utility bill savings, offsetting the cost of energy, but through your bills from the energy production, Con Edison or the utility would be crediting you back those that electricity production towards your bill. And the other one is through tax incentives. So there are three types of incentives for New York City or for New York State, but New York City focus in this case. And the types of incentives involve the New York Sun incentive. This is involves anywhere between 15 to 30% of the upfront cost that goes directly to the installer. So that's money that the federal government will pay the installer and give the installer as part of the installation. So that will reduce in itself the cost that you will have to pay for the solar installation. So whatever you like of the total cost. So you will that New York Sun incentive automatically takes 15 to 30% of the total cost, which makes your upfront cost less than that. The other two types of incentives that are provided are the state tax credit and the federal tax credit. The state tax credit, that one is generally provided by the state, and it is provided by the state. It's 25% that goes directly to the shareholders as well as the federal tax credit. This tax credits basically will be divided among the shareholders of the co-op, and they will be taking advantage in their own personal individual income taxes. So if they are paying taxes, they can claim up to 25% over a period of 5 years for the state tax credit, and for the federal tax credit 26% over a period of 4 years. However, I do want to highlight that in terms of the federal tax credit, this year, if you were to go solar this year, the individuals in that building could claim 26% for the federal tax credit this year, but that tax incentive is scaling down. So next year it will be 22%, and it will continuously go down over time. So that's some considerations that for you to keep in mind as you think about going solar. The other type of incentive that is a city-based incentive is the property tax abatement. So if the building is paying property taxes, that incentive goes directly to the building. So the building can take, can take advantage of that incentive if the building is paying tax incentive, is paying property taxes itself. So as you can see, this chart shows the cost post incentive. So if you were investing in solar after incentive, including the New York Sun incentive, which goes directly to the installer, the state and federal, which goes directly to the shareholders of the building, and the property tax, which goes directly to the building, your payment of solar comes to a very minimum amount than what you had initially thought it would have cost. So this is who gets the incentive, and this is how we want to provide it to you in another way for you to see. So shareholders, again, will be taking advantage of the federal tax credits and the state tax credit. Those two go directly to the shareholders of the building, and the building takes advantage of the property tax abatement as well as the solar savings if they are doing it for the common area of the building. So that's how it works. And it may be that sometimes the individual units are also taking advantage of the solar savings from the electricity production. So those are other things to consider, depending on your size, or your type of system. So over time, solar savings, how they work. So basically, even without tax incentives, solar systems do pay for themselves. It tends to be average cost for average time is 4 to 8 years, and you will continue to save money because of the energy production. So let's say that you installed a system that started producing over $2,000 in energy savings per year. Over time, that will accrue, and eventually the system will have paid off for itself. So solar energy, it slowly, with prices coming down, is becoming more and more something that people want to go and look forward to, because the technology is actually is becoming so much more advanced that it can last past the 25 years that the systems are being insured for. So solar savings come from the electricity production as well as the incentives that we just spoke about. So any questions on solar incentives and solar payments?
I have some questions.
Yep.
If the co-op owns a unit, can the co-op take the tax credit for that unit?
So usually how it happens is that the incentives can be claimed amongst the shareholders of the co-op. So if there are different, depending on the number of shareholders, those shareholders will be the ones taking advantage of the federal and state tax credit. So it's shareholder based.
Yeah, just to add to that, it's based on the number of shares that you have. So if the co-op owns the shares for that unit, then the co-op doesn't pay any income taxes, which often, most of the time, co-ops don't pay income taxes, then the co-op wouldn't be able to benefit from the tax credit because there's no taxes to get a credit on. So unfortunately, that they wouldn't be able to take that.
Additionally, I do wanted to add that those folks that for some reason are not paying income taxes, they wouldn't be able to take advantage of the federal or state incentives because it will be net zero, but otherwise the rest would.
And last question, Can you claim the tax credits over multiple years?
So the federal and state, you can claim it over a certain period of time. So the federal, you could do it over 4 years, and the state over 5 years. You could do it in year one if you had all those taxes to pay, but you have up to 4 and up to 5 to claim those incentives or those income tax credits. The property tax abatement, you must, that one will be mostly that's for the building. You must claim it over a period of 4 years. So you have, that one has to be distributed in four different periods.
Great. Thanks, Jose. So I'm going to take it away with financing options. What happens if you don't have the money in your reserves to go solar right now? So there's a couple of different ways to get solar power for your co-op. This is kind of an option tree. So if you're wondering how to pay for solar, there's two options. One is to either own the system or buy the energy. If you're owning the system, the most simple form of that would be to use your reserves to pay for the system outright. That doesn't involve anyone else, and so obviously it's the most simple. It also has the most savings, but it requires that you have the money in the bank before going ahead with it. So many HDFCs don't have that set up. Another option for owning the system would be a solar loan, and we'll talk about that in more detail. But a loan is a good way to not have to put the money down up front, but still get the benefit of ownership. And there's a number of loan providers for affordable housing. And then the other option for how to do solar is to just buy the energy. And one way to do that is through what's called a power purchase agreement, where a solar company will install the system on your roof, but then own it. And you just buy the energy from them at a reduced rate from what you used to be paying Con Edison. And with that, you don't have to pay anything up front. It's completely free, but you're still paying a monthly electric bill, essentially. It's just lower, and it's a payment for the solar on your roof. And then the other option is kind of similar, but it's offsite community solar, where you're subscribing to a solar array somewhere else in the city. You're paying for the solar credits that you receive from that at a reduced rate from what you used to pay Con Edison. So we'll go into more detail for all of these. For loans, the most common one that we work with, I'm just going to go into some of the details about it. The Habitat for Humanity Community Loan Fund is specifically for affordable housing in New York City. It has a 5% interest rate and a 15-year term. And then you prepay in the first, it says year one, but often people use the property tax abatement. So as Jose mentioned, that's actually over the first 4 years. And if you prepay your property tax abatement, then you can reduce the principal enough that the savings from the solar will always be more than the loan payments. So essentially from day one, you'll always be saving more money with solar than you're paying for the loan, and it's a cash flow positive endeavor. This is, as I said, only for affordable housing. That's true for most of the loans that we work with. And we've worked with a couple buildings to do the Habitat for Humanity loan, and it's worked quite well. The other type of loan that I want to mention is HPD's evaporating loans. So HPD has a program called the Green Housing Preservation Program, which offers low interest, often 0% interest loans that just disappear at the end of the term. And so it essentially turns into free money for doing building upgrades, especially for efficiency and lighting upgrades, boiler upgrades, and solar. So these loans can cover all sorts of building upgrades, including solar, and they can really help yeah, retrofit the entire building to make it more efficient and better performing. As you probably know, HPD has much more paperwork and regulation to deal with. And probably the biggest part of that is the regulatory agreement that the HDFC would need to sign to take advantage of this. So in our experience, this loan is really great for HDFCs that have a lot of work that they need to do, or a lot of tax arrears, or water bills, or really substantial renovations that need to happen. And then you can roll solar into that larger loan. It probably isn't worth the time and effort to go through this just for a solar project, which is really a small ticket item in the grand scheme of things. And as I said, a power purchase agreement is where a solar company owns the system on your roof, and you pay for the electricity that you get from it at a lower rate. So it's free to install. The solar company will be able to take those tax credits and then pass along some of the benefit to you. So if the co-op can't take the property tax abatement, for example, or if you're concerned about the federal and state tax credits, the solar company can take that and then give you a cheaper system for it. Another positive thing about this is that the solar company is responsible for the system for 20 years. So, you know, there shouldn't be any major maintenance, but if something were to happen and you needed to claim insurance on it, then that would be the solar company's insurance rather than the building's insurance. And one nice feature of this is that you can buy the system out at a reduced rate. So it's kind of like a rent to own kind of system. Often people do this after 10 years when you've been saving money with the solar already, and you can use that money to pay for the system so that you can get all of the benefits of ownership for the last 15 or 20 years. Keeping in mind that a solar doesn't work in every situation. There are some, roofs that are shaded or too small, and sometimes it's not the right time to install solar. If your roof is 15 years old and you'll probably want to replace it soon, but not quite yet, then it probably doesn't make sense to install solar right now. Then another good option is offsite community solar. So in this case, solar panels are installed usually on like a warehouse or some large open roof somewhere else in New York City. That energy is sent to Con Edison, to the grid, and then Con Edison will divvy up the solar credits that are generated and put it onto the subscriber's bill. So you'll see on your electric bill a reduction because of the solar credits. And then for every solar credit you receive, you pay the community solar owner a certain amount. Usually it's 90%, so you get a 10% discount. So if you've got $1 worth of community solar credits, then you pay 90 cents. So it's getting like discounted money on your bill. So with that, that can be a good option if in many different cases. So first of all, if your co-op doesn't want to go solar, but you really want to participate in solar, then community solar can be a great option. If the co-op does go solar and you offset your common area account, then all of the residents in the building can use community solar to offset their individual apartment accounts. And if, like I said, if you doesn't make sense to go solar right now, but it could make sense in a couple of years, there's no cancellation fee, and you can sign up or cancel it at any time. So what some buildings do is sign up for community solar now, and then in a year or 2 or 5, when you're ready to install solar, you can cancel your community solar subscription and install solar on your own roof. So it can be a great option, and we can help you decide whether, community solar or solar on your roof is a better option, and how you can do any one of those things. So does anyone have questions about the financing portion of things?
I have one question, if you don't mind. How much do you save with the PPA versus a loan versus buying the actual system outright?
Sure. So it's kind of directly proportional to how much money you put in upfront. So if you buy the system outright, you save the most because you're not involving any third parties. If you use a loan, then you save less, exactly 5% interest less. So add up together all of the 5% compounding interest that you pay for the loan. That's how much less you save. And then for a power purchase agreement, usually the value of the system is the value of the energy is more than what you're paying, because you are including both the solar company, and the solar company will have tax credit investors and loans on their own end. So they tend to take more of the profits. So the PPA, you save the least amount of money. So it's in that order, owning it outright, loan, and then PPA for what's the most beneficial. But it's also kind of in the reverse order for ease of use. So a PPA is the easiest to get. You don't have to pay anything up front, and it's a very easy contract. A loan is a harder contract, and you need to jump through a lot of hoops. And then buying it outright, you need to have the cash on hand. So it's a trade-off. And David, did you just want to clarify Kai's question about low-income tenants? Or I guess I can do that too.
Yeah, I just wrote in the chat. So I was just talking, there are many HDFCs do actually have low-income tenants, and so that's really the nature of what we're talking about here with HDFCs and affordable housing.
Yeah, and I guess I think when you asked that, we were talking about being able to claim the tax credit, and tenant or shareholder. There's lots of people in HDFCs who don't pay taxes if it's because you're a senior or a veteran, or you income qualify for the tax break. Then there's a lot of different situations where you wouldn't pay taxes. So that's what Jose was talking about. Okay, David, why don't you take us home?
Yeah. Thank you, Annika and Jose. So we have here just a general timeline, basic timeline about what you kind of could expect as a process for our Co-ops Go Solar campaign. So first and foremost, we provide you provide an electric bill to us, and we create a cost estimate and savings analysis for your building specifically. And so it's tailored to your building. And so once we get that estimate, we have a phone call to discuss that. We break down the estimate, talk over the benefits and downfalls of having solar in your building and how it could best be applied into your building. And then we could also have a board meeting about solar. Both Solar One and UHAB go to that board meeting, and nowadays we could do it virtually, of course. And we give a rundown about the estimate to the entire board, but also could do more education and informative things about solar and just how we're doing now, if just in case there's other board members that either aren't convinced or don't have any questions or have more questions. And then after that board meeting, ideally you would commit to solar, and then we start going through that bidding process for installers. Like we said before, we have that bulk purchasing, economies of scale, and we usually work with familiar installers, and so they give a competitive price. It's typically lower than a market rate. And then we go through the permitting, which is a lot longer than the installation part, which is a lot shorter. But at the end, you save money with solar, and that's kind of the key, right? That's obviously the where you want to get to. So simple things, once again, just a different way of saying it. What to expect with our campaign is education, first and foremost. We have these Solar 101 workshops. We also have on-site solar tours when we could all be together. You could physically touch the solar panels. That way we make them physically accessible, but also we try to help get them financially accessible. And we have consultation. There's a free personalized estimate, like I said. There's also a site assessment that we do for the roof. And of course, the board presentation tailored to your specific HDFC. And we also help you with the installation. We work with the installer. We have regular meetings with the installer to get updates. So if there's any hiccups, we know about it and you know about it. We guide you through the permitting process with DOB and other entities that may take longer. And we also have a step-by-step guide of how to speed along that permitting process. And of course, installation. We make sure that installation goes by smoothly, and there's no hiccups. And so we are with you during the process from start to finish, from estimate to getting your credits. We want to make sure that this process is as simple as possible and also as headache-free as possible. And usually it is. So that's kind of what you could expect if you go solar with us. And of course, you wouldn't want to go solar if you don't get any benefits, right? So solar adds value to your building. Of course, lower costs means happier residents. Lower bill means less things to pay. And solar, like they said, lasts about 25 plus years. And so you have that long-term continuous savings. And so that's a big plus of solar. It's that in long-term investment in your building. And a lot of buildings do take pride in solar. They take pride in being more sustainable and helping the environment, reducing that health impact and that energy cost impact. And it also helps all the residents in the building, all the shareholders engage into this one project, right? Because there should be a consensus in the building that this cooperative wants solar. And so it helps, maybe re-engage unengaged residents, and it makes them excited about the future of their cooperative. And also, considering solar helps you consider the future of your HDFC. It helps you consider the longevity of your HDFC. We don't just think about this as a single project that you do. It's really a holistic energy efficiency, sustainability kind of uplift for your building, right? We want to make sure that you reduce your electricity load. That way, when you put solar on your roof, it has the most impact. You're not just kind of wasting electricity on inefficient lighting fixtures. So it's all these benefits are come from like the actual installation of solar, but also from the process of going through this campaign. And next we have a couple case studies. Like I said, 20 plus buildings in New York City that have solar through this campaign. Here's 3, 838 Park Place in Brooklyn. It has a community solar system with a canopy array, as you can see in the picture there. The solar power offsets common area usage and individual shareholder electricity bills. They have $200,000 in savings over the panel's lifetime for both the building and the shareholders. 239 East 2nd Street in the Lower East Side has a planar array. The solar power offsets common area usage, including the laundry room, hallway lights, and water pump. And this building is smaller, and they have $55,000 in savings over the panel's lifetime. And the next building is 470 Convent in Harlem, and this is a 0-degree ballasted array. You can see it's just kind of flat onto the roof. This building is a landmark building, and so they had an extra different tax credit or tax break that they were eligible for. This building has $124,069 in savings for the common area charges over the panel's lifetime. All this money saved, all this energy saved. And so, all this being said, thank you for being here with us. So what can you do right now? Well, you just did the first thing, attend a training. So I encourage you to go, to stay home and talk to your neighbors, right? Talk to your board members and shareholders about what you heard. Also, explore other energy efficiency options. Like I said, this is a holistic approach. We want you to lower your electricity load. That way the solar has the greatest impact. And send us your recent Con Ed bill. You'll get a free estimate. You don't lose anything. We're just trying to make sure that solar is right for you. We're not going to push you and urge you to get solar if it just doesn't make sense for your building. We don't do that. We're not selling solar to you. We're just, excited about this renewable energy, and we want to make sure that it's accessible to affordable housing and to folks that it's usually not accessible to, right? And of course, stay connected with us. Stay connected with UHAB, and stay connected with Solar One. And let's chat. We could connect you with other energy efficiency things, whether it's heating things and gas or electricity, but definitely, if you're considering solar, just stay in contact with us, even if it's in 2 years' time. Let's keep talking. And with that,
Awesome.
I'll pass it over to Jose to close it up for the final questions.
Yeah. So thank you everyone for coming to this workshop tonight. We have some time for questions. So either keep putting them in the chat. I think we're a pretty small group. So, if you would like to unmute yourself, we could also do that. I want to say that you will be receiving an email. An email should is being sent to you as we speak. In that email, you will be having you will be receiving an update with a survey. We will ask that you please fill this survey as you receive it on your inbox. And you should be also receiving by tomorrow a recording of this presentation as well as the slides. So you can have access to them. One more thing I want to say is that if you are an HDFC, we really encourage you to try to see if your building is fit for solar. As a nonprofit ourselves, we are here to guide you through the whole process from beginning to end, because our goal is to really help more people take advantage of the benefits of solar, and also introduce you to what incentive programs are available to you and your building. So with that, we are opening it up for questions.
Karen, I see you raised your hand. I'll go ahead and unmute you just so you hear another voice.
Okay, I just wanted to ask a question about the individual solar option, just in case the board is not interested in solar.
Mhm.
So you didn't explain how it works for an individual.
Yeah, so the individual option would be this one, the Offsite
Right.
Community Solar. Do you have a specific question again about it, or do you want me to just go over it again?
No, you went over it, but I don't know. It doesn't make sense to me. So what would be the first step for me to do?
Sure. Okay. So the first step, probably the easiest thing to do, is to reach out to us with your individual Con Edison bill, and then we can see how much energy you're currently using and put you in touch with a community solar owner. We've vetted a couple community solar providers who do this and who have good rates and good practices. And so then we can connect you with them and help walk you through that process.
Okay, so I can speak to the other shareholders, and if it's more than one, we could just submit the bills together and go from there.
Yeah,
Yeah.
So that's the
absolutely.
first step.
Mhm. Usually usually if you can get a collective group that wants to go solar through community solar, you can definitely send the bills to us, and we can connect you to the different community solar providers. But the process tends to be individual. So in your case, because you are the owner of that particular account, of that utility account, you will have to go and register yourself with your information, so you can
Okay.
start benefiting from solar. But it completely, you're 100% encouraged to get others to go community solar with you, if in the case you want to take advantage of solar energy credits if you don't have it in your building.
Okay, so is there any type of tax abatements for that? Not tax, yeah, tax credits for that?
There's no tax credits for community solar, but there's also no cost for community solar. You're just saving money, so so it's ultimately maybe even a better deal.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, you will be saving at least 10%. The average is 10% in your energy bill. So instead of, let's say you used to pay $100 month to month, now you would be paying $90. So at the end of the year, you would have saved over that period $120 because you save $10 every month.
Okay.
Mhm.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome. Any other questions? And Kay, I wanted to see if we did address your question. We will be sharing the slides with you. And then I think you were unclear about tenants in co-ops. So just to clarify how co-ops work, basically some co-ops do have shareholders who own that unit space, or who are shareholders and have claim to a unit space in the building, while others are rentals. But those shareholders that do own, that do own a claim to that unit space, those are the people that from the co-op that could take advantage of the incentives if they were paying income taxes of the federal and state.
Right, and if there are tenants in a co-op building, usually it's the apartment is owned by the co-op or something, then those tenants would not be eligible for the tax credit either.
But in terms of solar energy, everyone would benefit from the production because everyone will be accessing clean energy, and possibly, depending on how the maintenance fees for that building is distributed, there is some savings in the long term for the building itself in electricity usage, or in electricity savings. Anyone else with any burning questions that you may have, just in general about what we discussed today? Juan or Ariel, maybe you have any questions that we may answer to you? All right, so I want to thank everyone so much. It seems that you guys are all set. And thank you so much for having participated in this workshop today. And we look forward to staying in touch and in communication with you. Again, my name is Jose Galvez, and I am from Solar One. And I am here joined today with my wonderful colleagues, David Avina from UHAB, and our superstar solar guru and expert, Annika Wister-Jones from Solar One as well. So please stay in touch, follow us. Our website is herecomesolar.nyc, or you can visit us online, Google Solar One or UHAB, and get in touch with us for any of our services. So thank you so much once again for joining us, and looking forward to staying in touch.
Thank you, everyone. Have a good rest of your evening.
Thank you, you too.
Stay safe.